Hello, this is Todd Siegel with the Psychic Zone. And if you didn't hear that part, this is Todd Siegel with the Psychic Zone because I just started recording. Anyway, I am here with Psychic Rachel Kohler, and we did a podcast not too long ago, which is very, very popular. Everybody loved it. And so, one of the things that we were talking about was doing a podcast for 2023. And just a couple of things that it is very hard to give world predictions. And it doesn't affect everybody, of course, but one of the things that we were talking about was trying to keep this positive if we could, or to at least help people to guide them as to what they might want to do this year and what things they might not want to do. Um, but some of the best stuff was not recorded that we probably should have put on the air, but we'd probably be kicked off the air. But we do like to say the truth, and the truth is like a very hard thing to say in this world anymore. What do you think, Rachel?
I'll drink to that. And I don't drink alcohol anymore, but yes, I totally agree. It's really, really becoming more and more difficult. However, I do believe that the more people that pull up their big boy pants and start speaking the truth, we will overcome this suppression of truth and freedom of speech. That's one of my hopes and prayers, anyway.
After talking to people all the time and when you talk to them in readings as well, the impression that I'm getting almost every single day right now is the public has total distrust over what they are being told about everything and even the media. So I see this, maybe about 10 years ago, it wasn't as prominent, but now I feel all sides of the coin are becoming more distrustful about what we are being told. That goes for health, that goes for financial news, anything. So, what do you think about that?
I would agree with you on that, Todd. And I feel that with the recent events in the world, and I'm going to use this word, lockdowns,
Mm-hmm.
and restrictions that were put upon us, that it has caused an awakening in some people. I won't say all, I don't expect all, but I feel you're correct. People are becoming more questioning, and they're starting to stand up and say, I don't think so. I don't think you can do that to me anymore. I will not comply. And it's not being obstinate, it's protecting your space, your freedom of choice, your freedom of to say no. I'm not going to go in that direction just because my government says so.
Yeah, there's been.
It's become a big challenge for people, and you and I have talked quite a bit over the years, and when I read someone, even people that I know and in my community, people have this underlying fear. They don't know, they're waiting for the next shoe to drop.
Mm-hmm.
What else is going to happen? How can I protect myself? How can I protect my family? Who do I trust? Who can I not trust? So, and Todd and I we were talking last night for over almost 3 hours about predictions and what we can do. We're not here to throw a black crepe piece of fabric on the world. We're trying to come up with solutions where we can help each of you individually. It's up to you. You have free will, and hopefully give you some suggestions to how to counteract what's going on. Because the bottom line is, people that we can't control what other people do or say. We only have control of our own lives. And I feel it's high time that people in the world started using what I call their personal power. And if there's any of my clients listening, you know what I'm talking about. We all have a personal power, but we have to start utilizing it to protect ourselves.
Do you mean like an intuitive power, or what kind of personal power?
It's an energy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have our chakras, our seven major chakras, and then we have an internal, what I call an internal fail-safe system. And that personal power is a protective mechanism. It's invisible, right?
Mm-hmm.
And but it's there to act as a mechanism so that we can protect ourselves. And I have taught my clients how to close their solar plexus chakra off so that people don't take that personal power from them. And I have been a witness to this, as many of my clients. I'm sure, Todd, that you have met people in your life, whether it's on the phone or in person, where after you're done communicating with them, you feel like somebody sucked the life force out of you. Is that true?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
because they took your personal power and they pull it from your solar plexus chakra.
Mm-hmm.
So I've taught, and this exercise was given to my guides years ago. And it's as simple as just placing your hands, fingers and thumbs intertwined together as if you're going to pray. And you keep your hands flat, your palms flat, place them above your breastbone and down over your navel. And you just hold your hands and thumbs there for 10 seconds. And voila, they cannot enter you. They cannot drain your power. And it's worked wonders for clients. I had a client in North Carolina many years ago. Her boss she said, he's always on me. He's always picking on me. He's always demeaning me. And I said, just try this exercise. She said, what's it going to do? I said, just try it. She called me 2 weeks later and she said, Rachel, he doesn't bother me anymore. I said, well, now what do you think happened? She said, I no longer gave him permission to upset me or pull my power away.
Mm.
And their whole relationship changed. I always tell people everything is energy. We are constantly absorbing energy and giving off energy. People, plants, even pieces of furniture, because we attach our energy. If we have an antique ring, we attach energy to that ring. If that ring is worn by a certain person, their energy is in that ring. So we have to be more cognizant of how energy works,
Mm-hmm.
and more importantly, how it does not work. So I
Yeah.
share that exercise because I do it every day before I do a reading, before I go out in public. It protects me and I feel very secure with it.
It seems like people should learn this stuff at an early age. It's
They
crazy.
don't teach
Yeah,
they
I,
don't teach it.
I, it's crazy the amount of people that are on depression and anxiety drugs right now, and I've never seen so much in my life, even with children now, and a lot of times they do not work the way they're supposed to work, and with the health system, a lot of times these people feel like they have no help. They'll talk about their symptoms and then they'll get thrown off from it, and or basically just saying, well, it's not perfect, you just have to bear with it. But it's a very depression right now is so huge with people. And I'm not a doctor. I'm not saying that you shouldn't take medicines for it. But what I am saying is that it is so overlooked right now, and people get hooked on stuff, and they get worse. Even personal friends of mine. And this is one of the things that always kind of surprised me. So when I was in my 20s, I learned Japanese medicine, uh, holistic healing, um, kind of like the old school Japanese healing, traditional healing. And I went through several years of this, and I even was teaching for a little while. And the thing that surprised me was that in Japan, especially in the old days, all children were taught how to heal. They were all taught these skills of exercise and you know things that would help them psychologically, mentally. And I see kids growing up today, and what do? They just shove a phone or a tablet in their faces, and we don't have any structure for the future to, I suppose, cope psychologically later on in life, you know? So that's just what I wanted to say about that.
Well, taking a pill only cushions this and covers the symptom, but what is the source of the depression?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the basis of holistic healing. Holistic healing examines the body, the mind, and the spirit. It's a triangle. And when the body is the barometer. If your body is ill or sick, it's an indication of something going on with your mind or your spirit or your psyche.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all the body does. That it just says, "Hey, I'm in trouble." But I think, unfortunately, we're in a culture universally, more so in this country, where we want a quick fix. Take a pill.
Mm-hmm.
I want that order now. I need that reading now. Sorry, but not everything works that way. You have to work at a specific goal, and it takes time. And I agree. I think years ago, they had the mystery schools that they would teach
Mm-hmm.
children the true meaning of life and why we're here, etc. So it's a vicious cycle. I've never seen so many people committing suicide and on pills and medication.
Mm-hmm.
And it's dangerous. It does affect the psyche and the psychic part of us too. Those drugs are dangerous. I don't care if they're prescribed by a doctor; they're still dangerous.
Yeah.
Most
I've seen the opposite effect happen with people. So that sometimes is is not monitored, and you can go completely the opposite way of how those drugs are supposed to work. And I've seen many suicides happen because of that, you know. But and the other thing in psychic work too that often comes up, especially with younger people because they're so sensitive, um, getting into past life things, things that might have happened to this child in a past life, they will act out through their childhood, um, and we often, think this is a psychological problem with this. Have you seen some of those things with clients?
Oh, yes, yes. I have conducted past life readings for years, and I only do it from a therapeutic perspective. I don't do it for entertainment purposes.
Uh-huh.
And a lot of issues that are buried within the Akashic records, which are the soul records, do tend to manifest in future incarnations or what I call life spaces. Yes. And there's a lot of trauma involved with that.
Mm-hmm.
And a past life reading is different than a past life regression. When I lived in Pennsylvania, I did, clients face to face, and I did past life regression. And it really, well, it really brings out a lot of angst in people, but it's a form of healing and cleansing. Yes, absolutely. And people that have certain fears or phobias in this life, it's 9 times out of 10 connected to another incarnation, Todd.
Mm-hmm.
That I've seen that. I've gotten the validation from my clients. The testimonials are right on my website. People that have gone through had past life sessions with me. It's very interesting, and it's a very therapeutic process.
Yeah, yeah, and there's a lot of interest. I mean, so many people ask me about it, and it's kind of like it's sort of a hard thing to prove to people, especially if they're kind of skeptical about it. Although I've seen such severe cases in people who actually are reliving uh, so many past lives. And, some of these people have physical scars in their body that actually have shown from a past life. It's nothing that came about in this life. It's something that they remembered, like if they got stabbed, in a past life, and then all of a sudden you see this little mark, on their arm or on their stomach or something like that. It really it can get into some very intense stuff.
I
And
agree. I agree.
I wonder too. I mean, if we can go through past lives, do you think the Earth goes through past lives too? It's kind of a strange thing. It's almost like, yeah, each day is the future for us. Tomorrow's a new day, but it almost feels like this point in time is bringing back remembrances of something we went through long ago on Earth too. Like a cycle that's repeating itself.
Well, we do tend to cycles. We do tend to repeat things that we've experienced and done before. History does repeat itself. But now that you bring up that question, what I'm hearing from my source is that uh, we're starting to split. We're starting to split dimensions. In other words, in the olden days, in the spiritualist realm and movement, they talked about something about a veil between this life and the other side, and the veil has been lifted. That's why more and more spirits are coming out and coming forth.
Hmm.
And with this, they're bringing back past events, past experiences, people that have not lived for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, because souls do tend to reincarnate repeatedly. So,
Hmm.
does that make sense to what you're questioning?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I used to living in old New England where I was on my old farm. It was my daily life was almost as if I was living in the 1800s. That's what it was like. I felt these spirits all around me, and some of the trees outside of my house were 200 years old, and some of some days I would sit out there on a nice day and I'd sit next to this huge maple tree, and I remember the energy of that. The energy of the tree would tell me about who was coming through the land at that time. I'm seeing horses, and it was originally a stagecoach stop, so I'd see stagecoaches. And then some nights I'd go out and I'd see Native Americans walking through, kind of walking through the forest in the dark. And there's so many memories on Earth that we tend to overlook, but I remember that home was so filled with old memories. And I get that here, at my new farm in Virginia. Um, Not a lot of traumatic stuff where I live, but I know there are a lot of Native Americans here. And I do just occasionally, if I'm aware to it and I'm open to it, I can almost feel the spirits talking to me about how to live in this new age right now, what kind of stance I should take in the world and how I should go about. Because I think what people are looking for is a real instruction manual on how to survive these times, you know?
I agree. That's what we came up last night. I said, I don't want to just talk about doom and gloom. I want to provide solutions. Predictions are great, but what can we do as individuals and collectively to counteract, to survive? And I feel that our mantra for 2023 is it's a matter of survival. We have to learn how to survive and not, and you and I talked about this quite a bit last night, not rely on other people like governments and
Mm-hmm.
communities. It's called self-reliance, people,
Mm-hmm.
learning how to take care of self. And I won't repeat the example that I used last night. You know what I'm talking about because it
Uh-huh.
might be interpreted as political, but governments governments are governments. They're a separate entity. And I'm not going to get into the politics of it, but I think people are starting to wake up and realize they can't count on governments the way they once had. Maybe some of the individual state governments
Mm-hmm.
are more secure because they're more geared toward the individual needs and challenges statewide. But when you go into federal government, it's too sparse. So self-reliance is something that we do want to talk about. And I know that you and I have some suggestions as for our followers to consider,
Yeah.
consider,
Well,
instigating, instigating,
yeah.
into, investing into your life and sharing it with others. We're not just talking to a few people here. We're hoping that a few people will start sharing our suggestions with other people.
Well, I was talking to the other night about how I felt about 2024. So I'm skipping a year here. And I was involved many years ago the with anti-political movements and the corruption that was going on. And it was very, very serious stuff because we're talking about healthcare needs for people. And I felt they were throwing gasoline onto the fire. But what is coming to me intuitively when it's almost like, yes, you don't want to talk about politics, but I feel a very strong source of very nasty people out there who have incredible wealth and incredible power who are manipulating uh, our times right now. I mean, we know it going through the virus days. This was much more than just, oops, a virus got loose. It was much more than that. This had also financial ramifications to our society. And one of the things that I felt is almost helpless now. Like we don't even have a government anymore. It's almost like a world government that we have. It's no longer the United States. It feels like the whole world is kind of controlling the purse strings on people. Obviously, they control the technology. Everything on your technology monitors you and basically controls your life. I remember the other day, this was crazy. I got an email that came through and it said that it was from one of my clients, and I thought he wrote back to me. And it was an old message that was a reminder about an appointment that we had. And it's actually sitting there looking at what I'm writing on an email. Then it brings the email back like a couple weeks later and says, Todd, this is another reminder about this appointment. And I was just like, what on earth this is? I think it's a Google thing or something like that. But, you know, the politics and the politicians is just it's a puppet show. It's the deep rooted financial engineering as I call it, that's going on. And I'm very worried about, I want to say 10 years from now, because I feel that the currency will no longer be here. That's the way I feel. I feel you're going to need $1 million in your bank account just to get by and to survive the new age, because of radical shifts in prices and radical shifts in just about everything. I'm not sure if you see that or not, but we could just bounce some of these ideas off the wall, and I'll see what you think
I
about it.
haven't looked that far ahead, and one of the reasons I don't is because I'm, with all the observations and research that I've done, I still feel there's a glimmer of hope that if
Hmm.
we collectively raise our consciousness, we can turn some things around. We can.
And
So
that takes a big effort from everybody too,
I
not
know,
just
but
individuals,
won't be everybody.
Yeah.
I've talked about the 80-20 rule, you know, although I'd say it's a lot less. I'd say 95% of the people of the world are asleep,
Hmm.
and 5% are the ones that are awake. And they're going to be the ones that are going to carry the ball and say, we have to do this, this, and that to survive. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I feel. Because
It's
we've seen a lot of angst and horror and destruction and basic evil, but we have to rise above it, and this is why I'm always preaching. You've got to start looking at your life and things around you from a spiritual perspective. You've got to rise above it. If you don't, you'll sink in the mud and the darkness. And this is, I feel, what we're dealing with right now. This is not Republican versus Democrat. This is good versus evil. And I'm
hmm
not saying those political parties are good or evil. I'm just using it as a metaphor.
hmm
And that is what we have to concentrate on. Because I told you one of the predictions I shared with you, I said, March, they call it March month, is a month of US scandals and lots of cleansing. We need cleansing, and we're going to get it in March. And
mm
a lot more is going to come out. It's already coming out. I don't know if anybody follows Twitter with Elon Musk. They're releasing all these hidden documents that have been hidden by from the American public.
hmm
And one of my other predictions is, and this was kind of shocking to me, but I was looking at U.S. Congress, and what I was told that some of the newly elected members are going to shake things up for our country because, and I quote from my source, they have big mouths and they will not back down. Also, I received the term, quotes, new administration, but not in the literal sense, more like a new energy, a new attitude.
hmm
Now, I'm not saying they're going to solve everything, but they're going to try. They're going to try to turn things around. And I'm going to put that prediction as positive and hopeful.
hmm
Okay. What are your thoughts on that, Todd?
Well, I kind of related to relationships this year because, and you were talking about this too, it's a totally different subject, but it does have to do with personal relationships. And I feel a, a really, I've seen it lately, but I'm feeling it's going to get stronger. A lot of people are going to be in new relationships this year. And a lot of people who want to get out of what they were in will be able to as well. But it almost feels like there's a resurgence of relationships, dating, um, just people who find partnerships and say, you know what, we could do well together. And I actually felt that's going to affect the environment, especially regarding government and politics. I feel the people who have been lying will not be heard anymore, and people won't have any tolerance. This is about people basically taking a stiff upper lip with things this year, and what they're told they're going to ignore, and they're going to embrace the good stuff, and it's going to kind of go into relationships too. People who've had enough in their relationship are going to just say, it's just not working. I need to find myself or find somebody else. And
Well, that's interesting because that goes in line with what I told you about dating, the dating scene.
yeah.
My guide said that 2023 would be, the dating scene would be less cluttered. Now, I kind of chuckled when I heard that, and you people can read into it what you want. But what I got from that was more positive people will be available and more people who know what they want. There won't be as much, I don't know what I want, this game
Mhm.
playing and lying and deceit. Does that kind of fit in with what you sense?
Mhm. And
Okay.
it gives me hope that I don't need a nose job or plastic surgery to get by this year. I mean, it gives me some hope, but
I think you'll be okay.
you
No, that's
also
really interesting. You kind of got it from a different similar perspective. I call it the cosmic shuffle. People are, shuffling around and looking at their relationships and saying, yeah, like you said, I don't love you anymore, or I think we need to be with somebody else. I think I need to go my way. I just feel it's going to be cleaner. That's the word I
yeah.
want. They say less cluttered. I'll take less cluttered, but cleaner. So I like that. So that's a positive, people.
It is. I also see a lot of creativity happening this year with music and arts. I don't know why, but you know, I remember back in the 80s the explosion that we had with music and images and the way people dress. I mean, the 80s was a time that you just couldn't even imitate. But I do get a little bit of that this year with style and being a little more step out of the box and music and stuff like that.
You think the
So
taste in music will change?
I think the type of music may change. I feel that it's actually one thing that I see is a little bit of resurgence of the 70s in some of the sounds. So I'm getting a kind of a rock and roll, and then I'm also getting this disco type feel. It's kind of weird.
Wow.
Um, and that's good because I can put on my tight satin pants again. I think they still fit, but I'm just kidding. Um, the other
Yes.
thing,
And you can dye your hair blonde again, or the picture you had on your.
yeah,
I
yeah.
love that picture.
Oh, you like the blonde
Yeah,
hair?
you were a cool dude.
Oh, okay. Well, that's cool. Um, spiritually speaking, to get us out of this rut too. And yeah, the relationship thing was kind of weird because it didn't feel like a lot of fighting to me. It felt like a lot of people were looking at each other who had been in partnerships and just saying, you know what, I think we need something different for our
Right,
lives.
right. It's. I feel it's a consciousness thing. It,
Yeah.
it definitely cosmic shuffle. You know, and we go through cycles like that where where there's more divorces. There's more marriages, more
Hmm.
births, less births, etc. Well, that's two positives, Todd. So I think we're on a roll.
You said something about animals.
Yes, this was really strange. This is 2023, 2024. Okay, I see a definite increase in attention to animals. More people and groups will come forth and place a lot of energy on resources, stopping animal abuse, dog fighting rings, puppy mills, etc. These people and groups will become more organized. I feel that's key, and will have specialized funding to support their causes. I don't know if the funding will come from government or private citizens or whatever, but I just feel that their animals are really going to be more in the forefront of people's minds and attention, because people, I know that people are connecting more with their pets, and almost like the animals are replacing partners in a lot of relationships.
Yeah.
But I feel that that's temporary. Not that they're going to get rid of their animals, but people will be connecting with their pets and all animals in their respective areas and communities, because I feel this event is representative of a shift in the Earth's consciousness, where lessons, sorry, I have terrible handwriting,
That's
well, where lessons from animals who are teaching us to honor and respect. And that's what we have to do. We have to honor and respect the animal kingdom, as animals are here to teach us these lessons. And I feel they're here to teach more. And this will eventually, with my hope and prayers, spread into people, where people will become more, I have to say, more human, more loving, more kind toward each other. And I further say I am very excited about this new energy, for it will have a rippling effect on humans to raise their consciousness and eliminate negativity and cruelty to all of Mother Nature. And
Yeah.
then final comment, I know I don't even want to interpret this. If you want to interpret, Todd, you can, but they said, consequently, those that choose to not abide will be, in quotes, eliminated.
Hmm. Well, it has to do with less tolerance to things. Also, I did see something else that was sort of interesting. A lot of people have had therapy dogs, therapy animals, those kind of
Yes,
things,
yes.
and also pets being used in hospitals.
Nursing homes.
I've obviously been, you know, I don't have a fun job. I mean, with all the missing dogs and cats I get, even horses recently. So I just do it to hopefully make a difference. But I have noticed that animals have been playing more of a role with autism and people who have, on the spectrum. Also, dealing, with people who need like a security type pet. So that I see getting even stronger now. And unfortunately, what I see in my work is whenever the economy gets worse, the more animals are stolen and sold. And somebody was asking me about that the other day. They said, well, what does that mean that more animals are being stolen? I said, for money. Every time the economy goes bad, these animals and some of these pets can bring $3,000 to $5,000 a piece, and that has been unfortunately.
They do it here in this area.
Yeah, and people really need to watch out for that too.
Well,
The other
I'm
thing.
sorry. I have to interrupt. I have to say this because this bothers me. I
Yeah.
think people, if you people want to have pets, I think you really need to be more careful and protective of them. You've talked about on your Facebook page about, hiring these pet sitters who
Oh my God.
might be competent. And I see people in the neighborhood. Some woman had a Pyrenees dog. I think they're very pricey. A puppy running around the backyard, and now the dog is missing. in our neighborhood, okay, in a community next door. And I'm like, do you not have common sense to allow any animal, I don't care if it's a purebred or a mongrel, to to treat an animal like that, and then so cavalierly, not care for that animal. I think people need to be more responsible about pet care, and then these dogs run away. And you and I have talked about this. I think some of these dogs run away because they don't want to live there anymore. Would
Yeah.
you agree?
Usually usually what happens with a lot of these missing pet cases are a couple things. The one that's shocking me so much is almost every other pet that's lost right now that I'm working on was a pet sitter that was watching it and lost the pet.
Right.
I'm in shock. I'm really in shock. And we have to be very mindful that even though your pet will like the pet sitter, okay, and the pet sitter likes the pet and they get along well, your animal's going to respond very differently to that person than you. And oftentimes they're going to seek you out if you're going for an extended journey, but people are not careful enough. The other thing too that is just but they're like you were asking me, yes, there's something usually going on with the owner of that pet or the household of that pet. There could be some bad sickness in the house. And pets pick that up very, very keenly. You have cats, right? And you
Yeah.
know how sensitive they are not only to paranormal stuff, but to sicknesses or fear of a storm coming. Pets pick up on everything. So I think there is an awareness among them that, and especially during 2020 when the pandemic started coming, pets went crazy. They
Yeah.
went crazy. Um, they knew something was wrong.
And the veterinarian clinics around here, you couldn't get an appointment because they were all packed,
Yeah,
because the animals were picking up on the home and the people's stress.
yeah,
This went on for years.
yeah.
Years.
Yeah, one of the common things was actually stomach problems with pets during that period. I was seeing so many pets that had diarrhea and stomach issues. It was all nervous oriented issues with these pets. And, you know, I just, we're also going into the year of the rabbit too, which is in the Chinese zodiac. So that's another thing too, because I do have a bunny here. Everybody's seen on my videos. Uh, Year of the Rabbit's interesting. It's about home comfort. It's also gonna be a little bit about health awareness. So there's gonna be a tone about health awareness this year. Um, we're also in what I call in numerology in spring mode this year. So there's going to be a lot of very spring type energy. I would say anything good for your liver is good this year. Rabbit is kind of interesting because um, I do believe rabbit is associated with liver. Actually, I could be off about that. But if you examine the rabbit and its habits, it's more of a nocturnal animal. So it's a night animal, and
Right.
they very very keen on their smelling. Usually at the rabbit, number one keen sense is their hearing. Number two is smelling. Actually, the eyes are last. As goes with many, many animals, and they're also very intuitive too. So you might see a resurgence in intuition And people, I mean, I get people all the time. They want to know how to increase their intuitive abilities, and I'd actually love to hear your thoughts about that too. If you have any tips for people, I just kind of like do my work, but I don't always have the answer to help people to develop intuition. Do you have any ideas for them?
Tons. But
Yeah.
I like to approach it from the KISS principle. For years I taught, spiritual development courses. I taught tarot courses in Pennsylvania, and teaching is really my passion.
Yeah.
Teaching and counseling, and
Mm-hmm.
I do still, teach spiritual development courses, and I basically the two main ingredients I think are important is meditation and prayer. And meditation is simply getting into a quiet place in your life and treasuring that time and going within, literally. And prayer, I'm not talking religion here. I'm talking about communicating with the higher forces of nature, whatever, if you have a specific God or a specific religion, fine. But those are two daily prerequisites that I always tell my students. You must do this every day for yourself, because if you don't, you're cheating yourself. So that's one thing.
Mm-hmm.
And also working on self.
Mm-hmm.
And that involves taking occasional time out, time out,
Yeah.
to look at yourself in the mirror and say, what do I need to change about my life? And to set realistic goals for yourself, and to learn to not look at a person, but look at their soul. And this is how you learn to develop your sixth sense. And I do believe that we all have an intuitive sixth sense about us. I call it our fail-safe system. I believe in it passionately. It saved my life so many times by listening to my inner voice, by not going out that day or not trusting that person.
Mm-hmm.
So those are just little things. Um, I also believe that to develop your intuitive self, if you feel that you have spirit energy around you, maybe guides, maybe you want to work on learning how to communicate with your guides. There's so many things that you can do.
Yeah.
Most of my spiritual development courses are kind of like 5 classes, but
You
then I have advanced ones. But I just think it's so important. And I feel now more so than ever, because I do feel we are becoming more interdimensional. I think we're starting to sense as humans that there's other beings around us on
yeah.
Earth.
Mm-hmm.
I've sensed them, and in order to be in harmony, you have to get with the program. It's kind of like you can't walk around thinking, "Oh, this is the '50s." It's not the '50s anymore. You
Yeah.
know, that was half a century ago or more. So this is just what I think you, as an individual, and to start small. I think people get hung up with this. Well, I'm going to get this book. I think The Secret was a
Mm-hmm.
big thing for a while. It's not in a book.
Yeah, they want a magic formula too,
No, no,
you
and,
know.
and I always tell my students there is no quick fix. If you're looking for a quick fix, it's not here. I mean, I taught 3 years of channeling courses at a community college in Reading, and it was a 6-week course. And the first thing I said to my students is, if you think that you're going to be able to do this in 6 weeks, you're wrong. I said you're going to have to learn to practice and apply yourself diligently. it takes time. And learning to meditate is one of the key ingredients. You've got to learn to go within, because you have to get silent. We have too many distractions right now. We have
Oh,
all
it's
these
terrible.
5G mobile devices, computers, microwaves, smart meters, outside noise, televisions. We are constantly, and that's energy. We are constantly being bombarded with energy. And I think this is why a lot of people today can't sleep at night,
Yeah.
because they're just burned out. Get yourself some tourmaline and set up a grid around your home. This will absorb all the negative energy. I have one sitting right in front of me on my iPad. And just learn. There's a lot of tools out there, but
Yeah.
there are no quick fixes. And I'm sorry for sounding like a preacher, but I'm very passionate about these things because I know that they've helped me.
Well, I think our approach in readings too is pretty straightforward. It's kind of like we don't mess around. We kind of tell it as it is.
You
I
and
mean,
I?
yeah,
Oh, yeah. I
I
think
think
me, but
there's a lot of people out there who charge a lot of money, and they'll tell you whatever you want to hear. But
that's a good
usually we don't.
entree to what we were going to talk about, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it is. One thing I wanted to ask though, and I get this question all the time from clients: how can one tap into their spirit guides? And to a newcomer, how would they know who their guides are?
Meditation.
Okay.
Meditation and prayer, and maybe keeping a journal of any impressions you're getting in your home. If you're sensing something, write down what you're sensing. Spirit activity, they can present a fragrance to you. My father, when I knew he was around, I could always smell his cherry blend pipe tobacco.
Uh-huh.
So they will use different mediums to communicate with you. The first time I was aware of spirit in the spiritual group that I was involved in, they would give me a headache because my sinuses are a weak part of my body. So I would say, okay, I know you're here. So now you don't have to, I got you, you got my attention. So you have to learn to listen. And the way to learn to listen is, again, rise above the earth plane. You've got to get into that spiritual plane where there is spirit activity. Spirit is all around us. It's not in a place. And you mentioned that in a post the other day. It's everywhere. The spirits are in the grocery store and down the street. I mean, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
And once you develop your third eye, and that's another good thing to get in touch with, your third eye energy, is to become aware, and then you'll start sensing it. There's a great book printed in 1934 by a lady by the name of Iris Bell Hayes called Spirit Guides.
Oh yeah.
And I use it. This is what I use in my spiritual development course. And she walks the gamut of how to develop your abilities, what spirit guides are, what they do, what they don't do. Okay. Some people use a pendulum. Some people use automatic writing. That's how I started, with automatic writing. There's different tools that you can use. Tarot cards, although I don't believe in using tarot cards on oneself. I don't recommend it. Some people do, that's fine. That's just not the way I was taught by my teachers. So there's a lot of different tools out there.
Yeah.
And crystals are wonderful because crystals are transducers and conductors of energy. They amplify energy. That's why crystals are so important. And there's great books on crystals. I just always caution people, when you go out going online or shopping for a book, if the book feels right to you, fine. If it doesn't, I'm telling you, don't get it. There's a lot of garbage out there today. There really, really is. And I know you and I have talked about this. Garbage in books, and some people that profess to be psychics, or I don't know what they are,
Yeah.
but in my opinion, well, you know what my opinion is.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of also, I find that the best books about things like crystals are books that incorporate history in them as well,
Yes,
going way back in time,
yes,
you
yes.
know.
The newer books, a lot of them are just fluff. They're very
Mm-hmm.
fluff. Um, Studying Carl Jung, Jung,
Uh-huh.
uh, studying Blatsky, studying some of the old mediums and spiritualists, the spiritualist movement. That was a wonderful movement.
Mm.
You know, going back in history, because that is where it really took off. So I
Yeah.
agree with you. The history, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it's you know, and I tend to look at things in my own practice. I can be a little superstitious too. Uh, not about crystals or anything like that, but kind of like do's and don'ts. And
Yes,
you know, I've certainly learned from you what to avoid, uh, and what to practice, and that's part of learning your intuition too. Is to not go all over the place with it, because you know, some people I actually find in appointments who are having some very bad psychological problems, and they're also having problems with their marriage. Um, Strangely enough, these are people who have come into their intuition or are fighting off their intuition. So intuition isn't always something that comes like, hey, look, I just had a vision, or I just predicted something. It's not always like that. Sometimes it can be a psychological breakdown, you know? And I don't know if you feel that, but I know for
yeah.
myself, you know, my anxiety got terrible when I started seeing things.
Mm, really?
It was strange. Yeah.
Well, you you didn't know what it was.
I didn't know what it was. I
You didn't
didn't.
know
And
what.
my grandmother who passed away, that same year, I'd sit there and have conversations with her. And once that kind of unlocked the door, I was having conversations with the dead everywhere I went, in houses that I worked on, old New England houses, and I would tell people about the inhabitants that once lived there, and then they would confirm it for me. And from there, it just so some people might come into intuition, and it might be kind of abrupt, you know.
Yes, that's true. In particularly emotional or traumatic instances, like a death of a loved one, or um,
Yeah.
like you said, like a breakup of a marriage or something, that emotional trauma can stimulate uh, psychicness. Some of the best readings my clients tell me I've ever given was when I was very emotional, but not using emotion. I don't know how to explain it. It's like you that post that you did. I think you might have done it today. You know, when I do a reading, I have to put my emotions, my personal feelings, my opinions, you know, on the world or whatever. I have to put that in a box
Yeah.
because that cannot interfere with my reading. In other words, I'm not, if I have a prejudice about a political figure, and that somehow comes up in the conversation, the client, I have to put that aside because my opinions have no meaning or purpose. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, when we're
And I
emotionally
know a lot of
engaged with something,
I know a lot of astrologers and great psychics who allow their personal opinions when they're making predictions. I've seen it. I've seen it, and it's very disheartening because it's so obvious, but a lot of people don't see it that way.
Yeah, it's true. Um, especially like when I do readings with parents that talk about their children, and some of the um, children always fascinate me, and they're so fun to read all the time because they're so open intuitively. But lately, I've been finding some very old soul children, really old soul children that have come back, who are very good mediums as kids. I've just seen this more and more lately. Um,
I saw that about, I forget, maybe 10, 12 years ago. And we need those children. We need those souls because the few that remain, don't take that literally, people, but the,
mhm,
the people that remain on this earth for the new awareness, that those people will be forefront. They will be the guides and directors. There's always going to be leaders and there's always going to be followers. It's just the human condition. All right.
mhm.
Not everybody can be a leader, um, but the ones that they're coming to the forefront more and more. And I've seen that with children. They're just such little beautiful spirits to read. They are. They're so pure and unadulterated. They're like animals. When I read an animal, they tell you like it is. If they don't like you, they're going to tell you, I don't like you.
Mhm. Yeah. And this new age of electronics it is very, very distracting. I can't go to, a restaurant nowadays, and I'm watching couples in there at the table looking at their phones and not talking to each other. and
Well, I
and
just got an impression on that from spirit, and they said there's going to be a breakdown in communication devices. Now, does that mean literal, where they're going to pull the switch, turn the switch? There will be some lapses, or they're calling it downtime, where
Mhm.
we won't have access. When? I don't know, but they're saying it's coming. And figuratively speaking, and this really shocks me, but tell you what they're telling me, people will start pulling away.
From
Right,
electronics.
right, right. I'm a great avid book reader. I don't like Kindles. I like a physical book in my hand. I want to read it, hold it, smell it,
Uh-huh.
and turn it page to page. But I feel from what they're telling me is that yes, people are just going to put the phones down and maybe I'll go out and take a walk. I find this quite surprising, frankly, because I see the same thing you do when I go out in public with these phone devices in their faces, and walking into the middle of the street or the parking lot, and they're not looking where they're going, Todd.
I know. I know. And we were talking about this, not recorded, and we were a little bit unsure how to bring it up, but I have seen, and I've also heard from clients about this,
What's that?
a lack of focus now, a lack of focus in our society. I
Yeah.
see it on the roads. I ride a motorcycle, and I'm very aware of what people do, and I have never seen so much zombies out there. Um, I'm not
I
even talking
agree.
about aggressive driving now. I'm talking about people who just aren't aware of what they're doing. And I see that in our society more and more too.
Well, in this area, and the daily news that I scan every day on the internet, people driving into buildings,
Hmm.
literally driving into shops, stores, driving into the other lane.
Mhm.
I know some of it is from these mobile devices. I'm sorry, they should not be using those devices when they are driving.
No.
That's a big, it's irresponsible and it's dangerous.
They also break up relationships too. And I tell that to clients all the time who have arguments with each other. And the first question I'll ask, are you texting your partner or are you texting them when this happened? They're like, yeah. I said, stop it.
Yes,
And, they say, well, should I call? No, go see them
right.
face
Oh
to
yeah.
face.
Oh yes. I had a client who was engaged to a man that she never met, and they only texted.
Mm.
They had a texting relationship.
Oh, my.
And yes, and I try to encourage my clients, don't text. Go see the person.
Yeah.
If you can't see the person, at least call on the phone. There's no energy exchange, when you're texting, and this is why arguments happen, misunderstandings. How can you explain something to someone? It's almost like you're being chicken. You're afraid to face that person and tell them what you're thinking or feeling.
Hmm.
You know how I feel about texting. I mean, it took me years to get a real cell phone,
Hmm.
and to get back on Facebook, because I just feel it's so impersonal. We have all these communication devices, but we're not communicating with people. We're communicating with that device, but we're losing that personal contact, that personal energy exchange.
And we went through that with the pandemic too. I mean, that really was kind of like the icing on the cake that really disrupted all communication, and people wouldn't want to be around each other. They were afraid to get sick.
Right.
People got into fights with each other because they blamed somebody else for giving them an illness. It was a total breakdown of
Oh,
communication, you know, total breakdown of
yes,
communication.
I agree. Well, I'm going to be looking forward to when the phones start getting put down and people start acting like human beings again, and not this kind of, it's almost like robotic, like you were saying, zombies.
Yeah, and I think
I think
I was guilty of that too. The only thing that I'm really conscious about now is actually putting my phone down when I'm not working, because my phone is usually the only thing I'm doing on my phone nowadays is work. I'm checking for an email or I'm checking for a message, and then I just put it down automatically. So it's kind of like you have to really discipline yourself to do that, you
and
know.
turn it off.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
one of my Rachelisms is, do you control time or does time control you? And we have to be very careful about these devices taking over us, taking over our time, because time is valuable and
Yeah.
it's also very elusive too. Um,
Yeah, that's the
do
interest.
you do you
I,
want to talk about that a possibility of a new thing being released?
yeah, well, I was talking about let's say an illness. Okay, that
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I talked about that or this last year, but fortunately nothing came out about it. But I am very worried because the report in China is pretty bad right now as far as
Mm-hmm.
more illness. And, we have, I speak to nurses, I speak to uh, high up officials in healthcare quite a bit. And we're, it's basically a matter of security in this country, which we don't have. During the pandemic, we didn't stop the airplanes. I mean, it was just ridiculous. We didn't stop anything. people are booking vacations. The minute they found out that we were locked down, it's like, hey, I don't go to work, so let's go to the beach. Um, so protect yourself, think for yourself. And right now, I'm not detecting like anything really bad, but that can change at a moment's notice.
I
I
agree. I agree, but when we talked about this illness, I told you, I said I don't feel it's going to be successful.
um, that it won't be successful to be stopped, or it won't be successful to be released.
Um, they will try,
They will
uh,
try.
but it's going to be, there will be an intervention. I'll call it to you this way. I'll say it to you this way. There will be divine intervention.
Yeah, and
And there is such a thing as divine intervention.
I believe that.
It
I
really is. I've seen it. I've witnessed it. I've heard it from clients. Um, they will intervene if necessary. That I got crystal clear. So I'm calling that as another positive prediction, people.
The one time that I see that that's a possibility would be August of this year. I'm getting August, September, and you know, uh, I think that people were kind of blown away about the first illness that we had, that I wasn't seeing it all coming from China either. Everybody was focused on China. I didn't feel completely like it was just from there, or only being dispersed from there. So
Well, there's a different agenda going on in China, Todd.
yeah, so it's very negative. As far as countries go, I mean, this year, uh, I do believe there's going to be a lot of travel for people this year as well, but everything seems to be very focused on water, is what I'm getting. Water destinations, that kind of thing. I feel that's going to be a very big thing this year. Um, any climate or earth changes that come to you?
Mm.
Well, that's good.
Well, there's a lot of activity going on out in California, and in the last 2 years around December, I've always felt that the big one was coming out there. And,
Mm-hmm.
um, how can I say this? I'm going to say it to you this way. It should have happened, but it was prevented.
Mm-hmm.
But I do feel the West Coast is going to get hit.
Yeah.
um, really, really badly. I'm feeling like San Francisco area.
Mm-hmm.
And, they've had terrible rains out there. They literally had rivers of water going through the state because I have clients out there. And also, now we're going to have slides. And when the snow melts in the mountains, it's going to be really, really bad. I see visually a lot of houses just being swept away. Um,
Feels like it's one of those 12-year cycles or 10-year cycles that we used to talk about, because I grew up out there, and there was there was always a cycle that would come about that was this long whole year cycle. First, it would start with fires, then it would start with mudslides, and then it would uh,
Droughts.
also very large waves. I was on the West Coast when the storms hit the coast and washed all the houses away. I
Mm-hmm.
was there. I actually was surfing on the coast and watching people's living rooms float by. Um, there was sandbagging going on. They had to put very heavy industrial walls along the whole coast, as well as jetties. They had tractor machines making huge jetties and barriers on the coast. This was, I want to say, about 1980, 81 possibly, and boy, that was one of those times in California where it was one thing after another. It wasn't just one storm. It was just like the whole state was under um, a state of emergency for a whole year. So it's possible they could have one of those years this year. Am I reading that? It to me, it's kind of like it's very possible, you know.
Well, I just feel somebody has some very nefarious plans for California.
You
I've
know.
been encouraging my clients for years
Mhm.
to leave. I just feel it's a matter of time, and there's not going to be any forewarning. I think the people that reside there have gotten enough warnings. If they don't get out soon, it's just going to be too late. And I just, there's a man on YouTube that does a lot of uh, analyzing of earthquakes and volcanoes all over the world, and there's been exceptional activity these past few months. In Indonesia, they had another earthquake. I mean, it's Earth is cleansing, and it's not going to be pleasant. And I
That's,
feel there's going to be, and I can't pinpoint any times, but I feel very violent thunderstorms
mm.
this spring.
I also
Which
sense some volcanoes too.
Oh yeah, well that's already happened. Uh, Hawaii a couple times already, and these thunderstorms could turn into, what do they call them? Uh, the funnel clouds. I can't
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
forget. Tornadoes, and
That's,
it's going to be beyond anything that anybody's ever experienced. It's going to be very, very bad, very extremely violent thunderstorms
from what I,
coming up in spring. Now, this is the United States.
yeah, from what I recall, I believe it was a year ago or 2 years ago, they actually, and this is pretty uncommon for California, but they did report funnel clouds, tornadoes. Um, I believe I heard that, and so that's kind of a scary thing.
I
But
think I did hear that. Yes, I did.
yeah, but the only place that I'm getting as far as volcanoes was one I felt was Chile. Um,
Oh, they have a lot of them down there.
and this one could actually cause a cooling of the weather. And like I said, when we say predictions, stuff like this is things that we're just picking up on. We're not trying to find bad stuff to tell people. We're just, with Rachel, it's often her guides will tell her. With me, I'm visually seeing it, and there's it's just there's a possibility, and like you said, sometimes there is an intervention with other things, like the illnesses and stuff like that.
Right. And there's two types of predictions: possible and probable. And if anyone wants to explore some other good books, get in touch with the books on Jane Roberts. She was a deep trance medium
Hmm.
from New York State, who channeled Seth. And he talks about probable reality. I'm still digging through that book. It's very, very deep.
Hmm.
Uh, it goes beyond possible and probable realities. It's very, very intense. But and I subscribe with you, Todd, to read some of the older books, the books that have been around for a long time, that are constantly being reproduced and reprinted because they're effective and they're true, and they're reliable,
Well,
and they're
I'm
Yeah,
Yeah,
and many of the books are backed by research, etc. Yes.
I'd definitely like to get a list from you. Except I'm a terrible reader. Books put me to sleep. I know it's a
Well,
stupid thing. This.
can get, what do they call them? Ebooks, or where they can record. They have recorded books too.
Yeah, although the book you were just talking about, is that an older book?
The Seth books, the Seth.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. But
So when
a lot of them are being put on recordings.
Oh, are they?
Uh
Okay.
huh. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like in the old days, I used to have to go to an antique bookseller.
Right.
That,
Right.
you know.
I hear you. Yeah, I do.
Yeah,
Do
and
we? Yeah.
I agree. I do not like to, one thing that I've noticed is looking at screens is just so bad for your eyes.
Yeah.
Um,
People should take lutein. I think that's how you say Lutein.
oh, okay. Yeah, so I see a lot of people with even kids having to wear glasses now because they're
Oh yeah.
so exposed to screens.
Even the females on some of these news channels. When I scan through, I see these women wearing glasses. I'm like, I never saw that before. Well,
Yeah,
I guess most people are akin to contacts, but I don't know. Glasses might be coming back in vogue. Do we want to talk about the U.S. economy? Have you gotten any sense about our U.S. economy coming up, Todd?
a little bit. What was kind of interesting is I felt like the current administration is trying to save face for what we went through the last couple of years, and I actually felt some improvements in the economy around uh, March. I do see some rethinking of interest rates, which actually is people who didn't move during that big housing rally that we had,
Right,
like a
right.
year ago, are probably going to be able to move more readily, I think, after March, and I'm also getting June. So I feel that what people couldn't do last year, they can do this year. Um,
The
that
housing
was,
here is sitting still, and contrary to what the Charlestonians want everybody to believe, um, the property values have decreased.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean it's terrible deflation right now. They talk
Yes,
about inflation, but it's really
no, deflation is worse.
yeah, it's
It's
deflation.
Yeah, it's really really bad.
Um, I do feel something about gold though. I feel like gold might be on the increase this year.
It has been.
And anything that you see economically happening?
I'm chuckling because they're saying lots of surprises. Now, when they say surprises, that's good. When they say shocks, that's not so good.
Hmm.
So, lots of surprises, turnarounds. Um, people would be People in positions of power who you thought you could rely on and trust will suddenly show their true colors. And the people that have been, quote, hiding in the wings and waiting for their platform to speak and act will come forth. Oh, that's good. I like that.
That is positive.
So basically, and that's straight from the horse's mouth. So basically, there's going to be some surprises for us, shocks to others.
Yeah.
Uh, and I'm relating to the middle class. I feel that there's going to be some upsets coming with the welfare system.
Hmm.
There's a lot of let me call it inequity there, imbalance.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm being nice. Read between the lines, but the welfare system is going to get overhauled.
Well, I mean, the thing that's crazy, and I talk to a lot of clients who are business owners, they cannot find employees. Nobody wants to work anymore.
But what's interesting, I see posts like on Twitter, and people are claiming that they're going out applying for jobs, and they're not even getting a reply back. Now, I don't know what kind of field or they're applying for, but there's something, somebody's not telling the truth here. Let me put it that way, Todd.
Yeah.
Something isn't right.
Yeah,
Uh,
I agree.
there are a lot of jobs out there. Um, and there are some people that don't want to work because they're getting paid more to stay home through some of the welfare programs. But I have a funny feeling, not a ha-ha, but a funny feeling that's going to change. That people are going to, what my guys are saying is they're going to have to work.
Mm-hmm.
They're saying if you want to eat, you're going to have to work.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really crazy compared to so many years ago. Um, Talking to my grandparents and people who
Right.
went through
Right.
the
You and
depression.
I,
I mean, there was no welfare.
no, no. And Social Security was supposed to be a temporary fix. And that's just, been blown out of proportion. But I like the big surprises. And I think we should, hopefully, we can monitor some of these predictions and maybe, kind of do some refresher review at some point.
Yeah, I think we
So,
will,
yeah.
definitely.
So, do we have time to talk about solutions or survival, or should we do this another night?
Well, we can do a few things if you want, and I don't really have any time limit, but we'll probably give it about 5 more minutes, and if
Okay.
you have any
Okay.
input you
Well,
want to give.
okay. Solution for survival: be self-reliant. Um, don't count on the government or society to fix your boo-boos, or don't follow any gurus or gods or news that says, oh, well, he's going to save the day. I think we made a big mistake way back when, and I'm not going to name any names, um, collectively
Uh-huh.
speaking. And start a group. Start a group of people with like minds, whether you're conservative or liberal, or people that maybe are interested in uh, helping others, ways to save money, setting up a budget. My background is a financial planner, so I know how these things work. But start a little group, maybe get a couple friends together, have coffee and tea or whatever, and just talk about world events. But the goal would be for these groups is to help each other exchange ideas and be self-reliant, to maybe thinking about food prepping, or ways to, maybe pulling out a sewing machine and start learning how to sew instead of buying clothing.
Mm-hmm.
Can you
Hmm.
think of anything else, Todd? I'm running out of.
Well, I kind of since I have animals and I have a farm, I feel the value of any kind of equipment, earth equipment, uh,
There you go.
tools, that kind of thing are
Right.
actually going to become more desirable as money gets to be kind of less desirable. People are going to be. I think if you really want to have security in life, is to have tools that people can use.
Yeah, tools are good, and maybe like a barter system or an exchange system. You know, this is about helping each other. And I think we have to get out of our little respective holes and away from our little mobile devices and start helping other people. That's just being a good person, a good soul, I might say. But I encourage groups. I told you that we started a little group here. When we're trying to get people with common interest,
Mm-hmm.
um, going out to dinner or, stopping at each other's houses, whatever. But learn to be self-reliant. There's tons of information on the internet. Google it. I don't use Google, but, do a search on Brave. Brave is my favorite browser. And, how to become self-reliant. People need to start learning. I'm amazed that, people that, they ask a question in a forum or group, and I'm like, all you have to do is search for it. Why can't you just go and search, how can I become self-reliant? Or what time does this restaurant close? Or what's the name of that? Have you ever noticed that?
Oh, people are getting, are you talking about laziness?
Yes, I
Yeah.
am.
Oh, yeah.
I am.
It's really getting bad. I mean, if I tell somebody on my page, they'll ask, well, where can I find you? Um, on YouTube, and I'll say, well, just put in my name, Todd Siegel, and then Psychic Detective. And they're like, well, I can't find it without a link. I'm like, you mean you can't type it in? That's basically the way it is. People are getting insanely lazy. And not only that, people are very lonely too. And I tell them all the time, if you want to stop, you know who are the people who are actually uh, who really have it together right now are the people in their 70s and 80s, even their 60s, because they are the ones who are dating now. They are the ones who are saying, I just don't want to be alone. Let's go out.
Well, that's
But
nice to hear.
but the people who are in the younger age groups, I swear, they've got so many phobias and so many problems and so many issues that they are becoming very sedentary, very lonely, depressed, that kind of thing. So
That's a
you
shame.
have to make change,
Right,
and it's time to
right,
start
right,
doing.
right. And I hope that with our little podcast tonight that we'll get some feedback. And are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh,
Hmm.
okay. I thought you went into the ethers for a moment. That we get some feedback and ideas, and we're here to help you. Todd and I uh, spent a lot of time trying to put this together. I think we should give credit to Val, the psychic astrologer.
Yeah, yeah.
That
Well, she's the forensic
designed,
astrologer.
right.
And she put the cover together because we're so incompetent at anything computer related. I thought, all right, can you whip this up for us? So
Uh,
we appreciated that
yeah,
a
Val. I
lot.
think it was really, really, really nice of her to do that. So we thank you and bless you. Okay, that's all I have as far as solutions for
Hmm.
survival. Again, I encourage people to email me, call me, text me. Let's see, last time I checked, I have 3 email accounts, a landline phone, a cell phone. You can Facebook Messenger me. I've run out of ways for you to contact me, but I think
Well,
that would be sufficient.
when I do the podcast description on here, I will actually give people your information. I'll give them your website and Facebook
You can
page.
you can try to do the Facebook page because I told you the first one we did, they would not honor me sending out my Facebook page. I think, and I'm getting more reports about problems with YouTube. Not
Well,
There's just I don't know, they're changing something, they're doing something, algorithm something.
well,
People's views aren't being shown at their
uh,
YouTube you may have to cut out this last part, but I have heard this.
No, it's okay. I mean they're pretty much manipulating everything out there. It's impossible to navigate Facebook anymore. They have this business suite thing, and it's driving me absolutely crazy.
The what?
They have this business type
Oh, yeah.
business suite on Facebook that I have to navigate on my page, and it's so annoying. I can't even tell you.
Yes, I know. I spent 15 minutes trying to reply to somebody tonight on a Facebook Messenger. I was so frustrated. I'm like, anyway.
Well, anyway, thank you so much for coming on here. And like
Well,
Rachel said, give us your feedback, and we want to hear from you. And we'll most likely do another one too. And maybe you can actually, in the audience, ask us what you'd like to hear about, what subject matters.
I'm sorry,
And
can you repeat that?
well, I was just saying that people can give us the subject matters that they'd like to hear
Yeah,
about too in the future.
I do encourage that. I had asked a couple of my clients. I didn't get any response, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I wish everybody well. Stay healthy and stay safe and keep smiling.
All right, we'll stay on here for a second, Rachel, and I'm going to stop the recording, but we will talk to them later.